I've got a bottle of water.
Okay. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, returning guest. You know him as Dr. Hans Utter, last name spelled Uttr. And today will be our episode 7 in our Advanced Soviet Research on Cybernetics, Biofield, Energetics, and Cognitive Restructuring. So I'm delighted to have him back. So Hans, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, William. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I do have a retreat. It's an Indian classical music retreat in Buckeye Lake, Ohio. I'll send you the flyer, put it in show notes. So anybody wants to either come to Ohio or lives in Ohio, the heart of it all, right? We got the vice president, man.
Right.
I'm trying to.
It's a hillbilly elegy. You can, it's all ties in together. Hillbilly,
hillbilly World Economic Forum elegy, man. Maybe that was my destiny that I didn't assume, because I got off the track of the.
It's a great cover for Vance too, because he's fully yelled up and has all kinds of ties to Peter Thiel and capital, or whatever you call it, venture capital and stuff like that. So it's he's old friends with Vivek Ramaswamy. They went to law school together, so these guys are all kind of
these guys, and I'm sure they I work, one of my life, primarily I'm doing live performance. I do writing and stuff also, but I am with some very elite levels of, hopefully it doesn't bite me in the ass, but I'll just say it. The Indians are the wealthiest demographic in the United States.
Right.
They have incredible power and wealth, and they are so dialed in that it's really amazing. And this happened in a very short period of time, but regrettably, all of them in politics, like Vivek Ramaswamy,
that other girl's one too. That other girl is Indian. That's whatever. She has a fake name, but she's always
Kamala Harris is Indian also.
Kamala Harris is Indian and Jamaican, but the other one,
from Hawaii. Senator from Hawaii.
I guess she's Indian too.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking about that. What's the other one? The other girl that's around that Trump is always kind of squabbling with. She has kind of
God, she I understand blanking her out.
Yeah, it's one of the most
irritating human beings.
Really one of the most irritating people. She was signing bombs that Israel were going to drop on little kids. I can't remember her name. Somebody in the show notes, please, guys.
I think there was
all there. But yeah, so Indians, no, but there is a demographic chart based on ethnicity, and the Indians are at the top.
But they have, people don't understand that, I've spent many, many years in India. I'm going, I'm doing my concert tour in India coming up in October through December. So I know India very well. But there's all these different groups. There's South Indian groups. There's Muslim groups. There's, particular, North Indian. There's Bengali.
There's 100 million Christians in India.
Yeah. But there's so many factional groups, but there's groups with tremendous power. Yeah. And especially, anyways.
Nikki Haley, that's who I couldn't remember.
Oh my God, I can't.
She's very easy to forget. She's such a zero.
No, she is.
But that's not even her real name. It's her name is Nimrata Randhawa is her real name.
Yeah. No, so they have for example, Gujaratis, Gujarat. This is Gujaratis. They call them they're the money lenders of India, right? They're the merchants. They have their own bank in Chicago, interest-free loans to Gujaratis. Huge networks. I know people that own chains. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. This stuff, and there's again, there's different communities. There's this, that, but there's a lot, tremendous amount of power. But the one thing that, not to get into this topic of quote unquote race. There's only one race, the human race, right? No, there's only the Aryan race, the master race. Just kidding. But the they have extremely strong ethnic networking. South Indian Brahmins, Gujaratis, particular Jain, this, that, these different castes. I mean, they have rock solid family networks. I mean, of billions of dollars of political power, that they're part of through family connections that are very, very solid. You
Yeah,
look at
they tried to get rid of the caste system. It didn't work. They still kind of have a functional caste
well, it's
system.
not even a custom. It's just a very strong networking power block, and white Europeans. I mean, unless maybe I'm sure there's some kind of power block, but completely divided, right? I mean, or European, pretty much just just steamroll over it. These are all different vectors that are being put into place on sort of the grand chessboard. And people will get shut down, this or that, but I mean, look at the ascendancy. I mean, because I have a long relationship, and again, no judgment against anybody or anything, but imagine me, as a German Episcopalian, and I suddenly have a huge network I can access. I have no network unless I build one. I don't, I mean, we don't, that doesn't
You
exist.
don't need one as much in the U.S. as maybe you used to. There were ethnic enclaves. They used to have to kind of have ethnic enclaves, but now it's kind of like those things have diminished more. There's still some out there. There's like WASP enclaves, clubs, those types of things.
Well, I'm just talking about more like community solidarity,
Right. Yeah.
root level identification
Yeah.
of a certain thing, which
I think it's broken down in the U.S. generally. Anyway, I think that's part of the cultural Marxism crap that we have to deal with.
Yep. Tangent. I guess I don't know if we're live.
We are live. We have been live for 7 minutes, but
Oh
it's
my
all
gosh.
right.
All right. Well, but you know what? So all these different power dynamics, the primary thing to realize is that what world do we want to live in? And most people that receive a lot of power, whoever they are, right, in the phantasmagoria of images, of media, of stardom, the Kardashians, going to the Ambani wedding. I stayed, next to the Ambani building in Bombay, because, they're in the news. That's why I'm bringing it up, but completely based on wealth, materialism, absolute. You have to have the right message. If you don't have the right message, you're not present, right? It Yes, there's a lot of funding and activism and behind every individual, but community has been broken down. But anybody that gets to a position of power has a message that generally is going to align with the agenda, which we'll be covering sort of on a base level, right? So this is the cybernetic control grid. So let's just dive in. So this document, very interesting document, Defense Intelligence Agency, Controlled Offensive Behavior USSR, and prepared by the Office of the Surgeon General Medical Intelligence Office. It's a very interesting document. I have I have hundreds of other documents, but this is a great sort of compendium, an overview of the type of research. And, the interesting thing is to see that these methodologies have been employed in the United States. Okay. And they've been employed domestically to great effect. But the other thing is the what they call the biohuman biofield, bioenergetics, ESP, but talking about electromagnetic transmission. So how many times people had experience? I'm thinking of you. Oh, you just call me, right? So that this exists. It's not something that has to be put on some weird airy fairy platform, right? We live in an interconnected divine universe, unless of course you choose to use these things for diabolical purposes. But there's many things that just It doesn't have to be flaky or, new age freak out. They did a lot of scientific research on this stuff. And so let's just dive right in. So, so basically, we're looking at human behavior manipulation. If you want to go to page 1.
Is that it, or this is it? Preface?
No, skip the preface.
Table of contents, page summary. That, or do you want to go? This is one.
This
part
is
one.
it. So we'll just go through this. There's so much rich information in this document that I don't. I'll try to hit some highlights and some things that are maybe more radical, but there's a lot of things. Effective atmospheric pressure, effective oxygen levels, effective ionized air, like very subtle things, effective pheromone release, photic driving, types of light manipulation. This stuff we can see in present day media, cinema, as well as in shopping complexes, etc. Right? So, but you want to go ahead and just read this. Go ahead, just go through this. We can.
Do you want me to just start?
Yeah, just read section 1 if you want.
Yeah. Introduction to human behavior manipulation. Background. 1. Methods for manipulating or influencing the human mind exist and are being thoroughly researched by members of the Soviet scientific community. For background and introductory information, it will be best if some of these methods were briefly mentioned. Techniques studied by the Soviets include biochemical, sound, light, color, odors, sensory deprivation, sleep, electronic and magnetic fields, hypnosis, autosuggestion, and paranormal phenomena, psychokinesis, extrasensory perception, astral projection, dream state, clairvoyance, and precognition. Paranormal phenomena have caused great excitement in recent years in the Soviet Union, so much so that it has been reported, 1, that the Soviets had 20 or more centers in 1967 for the study of this area. It was also reported that the annual budget for the 1967 for paranormal research was approximately $20 million.
Which, what in today's dollars is in the billions.
Yeah, a huge amount of money.
Especially in the Soviet Union. So this introduction, so we just go through this: biochemicals, sound, light, colors. So color, right? The effect of color, right? Color, odors. And this is very interesting to me, the olfactory thing, the use of odors. You ever go into a place and you get like a weird smell? Sometimes, so there's a lot of stuff done through both pheromones and through different types of smells to generate moods and feelings in an integrated environment, right? A lot of these things are very subtle. So they're completely background. They're absolutely below, unless you're aware of them, right? They're completely subconscious. They function completely subconsciously. You're going into a store, you're going to see a movie, you're going to a rock concert, you're focused on a particular framing. You have a psychological framing, you have a mental a model for what you're going to experience. This is where stuff is thrown in behind the scenes, right? It's interjected.
There were always stories about like what's the music that plays in the background in stores, and we were talking the pre-show, pumping oxygen into like casinos and things like that. So they put and you said even the carpets are designed. So a lot of these places have very subtle things, even in the modern world. So this is something that's been applied. These guys are studying it, but it's been applied in the real world. We also talked about, or I was telling you about Astro World, because Astro World has all of the. I think that they didn't leave anything out. I think they deliberately were trying to hypnotize the whole group of people. They literally had like a spiral and a cave that people were staring at. It's crazy.
Well, I did a few shows on Astroworld, so I
didn't know that.
I'd love to do something, because
I think compare notes.
Well, no, I mean, there's certain events. I mean, as a bit of a side note, I mean, there's certain events, right, that are they assume sort of monumental status, or they're also done with certain types of ritualistic objectives. So, how about the random obelisks that were, show up?
Right,
You know,
right.
the
Very
and
cleverly, like, and then they got tons of media. They were like viral, right? Like they put him in the Utah desert or something like that.
but the other thing is that like Astroworld, Las Vegas, all these things, there's so much symbolism. And Astroworld and the Las Vegas shooting, I think, if you look at sort of a larger trajectory or hierarchy, there's it's sort of a mass consciousness alchemical working that's going on behind some of these things. But Astroworld, with the people just dying,
Yeah,
they're dying. So, and these are actual people dying,
yeah.
right? And
Lots of
let's,
injuries too. So it was like injuries, death, like, and it just kept going. It's crazy. It's
but
like a stampede,
how about permanent trauma that's
right?
not even recognized? It's going
Yeah,
to affect the individual for life.
yeah.
Okay, but anyways, we go through sleep. Okay, electronic and magnetic fields. Again, this is 1972. Smart meters, 5G, 6G, um, all these different frequency ranges, magnetic fields are very important, both for positive. I mean, of course, the earth has a magnetic field, right? We are electromagnetic beings. We are one of the things as we do the last part of this is that there's a lot of limitations that have been imposed upon us in terms of how we understand what we are, right? As as this, we're incarnate human beings. I mean, it's that in itself, like, wow, I'm a human being. So much amazing things with the human body, right? But we have energetic fields. We run off, we emit electromagnetic frequencies. Our brains run off frequencies and circuits. We're magnetic, we're magnetized, right? I mean, we're connected with all this stuff.
Electrical, everything. Like the human body is much, all different types of layers of things going on.
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the pre-show, when we go to the last part of this, I'll go through people that have from the Soviet system in the space program, in cybernetic stuff that broke away from this and created a radically different viewpoint, but integrating all this information. But anyways, we'll go on. Hypnosis. Hypnosis is very important. Why? Because hypnosis, people think hypnosis is the the show where the person whatever they do, they do
Right.
something.
The stage show where they quack like a duck or act like a chicken, right?
Yeah,
Or think that they're Godzilla or something.
yeah, but the fact is hypnosis, going back to the very first pre-Macy conference, cerebral inhibition, it was called cerebral inhibition. So hypnosis, you can be in a permanent state of hypnotic trance and not recognize it. And that we can see, I don't think anybody can question that, in present America right now. When I first started doing this stuff, 2015, whatever, it's not that long ago, but with the level it's reached of hypnotic trance conditions,
Yeah.
and I'm going to throw this out there. I just anybody has any feedback or just as an observation, I noticed certain days or periods you see very bad erratic driving, like very aggressive driving. You see certain types of behavior in your public interactions. People are very aggressive, or they're just completely retarded. You know what I mean? They're retarded, meaning they're not able to cognitively function properly. You notice that, William?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's days where like everybody's acting kind of strange, like something must have happened or some kind of input or something. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've noticed that.
But no, but what I'm saying is I've seen like suddenly people are just doing insane reckless driving, or every store clerk is, or the bank teller, is dysfunctional cognitively, or else extremely rude and aggressive. you know, but you see this again, not conflating, my personal state, but I'm seeing this like really off behavior sometimes in groupings, temporal groupings for like a week or whatever. Anyways, so that's important. So we just go on through this. Okay,
Okay.
magnetic fields, hypnosis. So again, hypnosis is not well defined because hypnosis is, uh, you know, once you're in, you can be under a very light field of hypnotic suggestion,
Right.
which I just mentioned. You prime a certain group, then suddenly you get a collective response.
Yeah.
So,
You get like mass formation hypnosis or something.
yeah,
And William Joseph Bryan said that TV was a mild form of hypnosis. So if you're watching TV, the thing's blinking at you and they're playing games with you. A lot of it's just like resetting the conditioning. It's incredible. I can't believe some of those people like expose themselves to that stuff. It's really terrible. But yeah, hypnosis itself is really a vast field of study. It's much bigger than maybe people think. It's not talked about often anymore, but it's very sophisticated and different scales of hypnotic uh, subjects, susceptibility, and how to create a trance. And we've done those shows, Transformation. That was kind of Mead did that stuff in Bali or whatever, Mead and Bateson. But yeah, I mean, it's so something people need to know. Like, I mean, I think Hitler kind of understood hypnosis. I think a lot of those things and speeches and places he had were very dramatic and much like maybe Astroworld, believe it or not. A lot of noise, sound, like he was taking into account many psychological states, I think, in those things. Getting them ready, getting them primed. He'd make them wait longer, so that they'd be more suggestible. Like these are little techniques he would do. Start raising his voice, start off softly, and then scream at the end, kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, no, just all these, factors are very important. Auto suggestion, self suggestion. Um, okay, paranormal phenomena. This is very interesting. Psychokinesis, extrasensory perception, astral projection, dream state, um, clairvoyance, precognition. And so what's if we talk about the astral projection, so going back to the 1870s, going back even to the 1600s, this is a whole different topic. But um, a lot of these orders, Masonic orders, Rosicrucian, etc., right? So,
Crowley, all of Crowley.
but the thing was that you break the person down, or the initiate, and then they start receiving visitations from the master on an astral plane. But they talk very clearly about the etheric communication channel, where they could literally, living human beings could send a psychic signal to an individual, and they would see, like, they would hear the voice, and then of course they've gone through these initiations, including breaking down their, even as well as they're building up, they're breaking down their true self, their spiritual self, and building up their ego. Of course, what is, masonry, you get to the higher degrees, you gain more status, you gain more wealth, but your true spiritual self, your inner inhibitions, you know, your boundaries are broken down, and then you get visitations from these divine beings, these divine um, messengers, right? There's several books on this. Inquire Within, this, a breakaway in the 1920s. You talked about this stuff. You have the whole phenomenon of spiritualism, but the fact is you can project astrally, right? So, but they call it etheric communication channels. This is written about. Is it? So what I want to say is, go through this. Some of this stuff, you know, it's been given a veneer that it's not possible. Or else, if you believe in it, you're woo woo and you alien grays, or whatever, right? There's, but certain things within the Soviet Union, these were studied as military applications. So this is what makes it interesting. Um, dream state, okay, and precognition. And then we were talking the other day about like Philip K. Dick, reading the exegesis of Philip K. Dick. So in that, he talks about his novels where he was being communicated to by, he was is sort of a Gnostic. He had this, spiritual awakening, but um, you know, basically he said this AI being had fed him these books, and he was dictating from this sort of cosmic AI galactic computer, and he goes through this. It's but this is this, and he different topic. I won't go into it, but it's this stuff at the same era. You can see direct. You can see some direct connections. We go through this document. They talk about artificial intelligence. They talk about creating the perfect cybernetic man, the human biofield, sort of, monitoring of all perception, of all muscular motion, of all cognitive functioning, creating the perfect cybernetic man. Okay, so, um, but yeah, so the paranormal phenomena, and then again we had that last episode we did. I showed that thing right, when the Berlin Wall fell, and they had this
Right.
ESP experiment, and it was on this sort of a talk show format. You know what I mean, like a Phil Donahue or
In Russia, right? What was the
in
guy's
Russia.
name again? It's on YouTube.
Yeah,
Do you remember his name?
I not off the top of my head.
ESP. Let's see if I can find it. I seemed to have found it last time, but I don't know.
But that was declaimed. So the PowerPoint, I had quotes, and I had some other stuff. So that was declaimed as the whole thing, that all this research was BS. It didn't work. This was their big demonstration, and it failed. Right. But you see that as we went through some other documents, is that you want to create that perception. Right. So this was considered, all these hundreds of billions of dollars spent in this area were absolutely nothing. Right. Just a waste of time, waste of energy. That was the cap. But then it's very interesting to see that, though, with the if you see it with the subtitles, with the hypnotic. If you bring up that PowerPoint, it's in there. I don't know. Is that still in the?
Yeah, I think I have it here. Let's see if I can find it. I'm trying to. The PowerPoint has the name of the thing.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it. Communist spies.
This is the older PowerPoint. I did.
Oh, I gotta find the new one then.
Okay, we'll leave that. But anyways, so let me just read point 2. And again, within this, so this is July 1972. We just finished July. We're in July 2024. So let's be aware that we are in an environment of controlled offensive behavior. Okay, we are living in this world. This has become our world. And whatever is discussed in this document, I'm sure is far advanced. But point 2, okay, the purpose of mind-altering techniques is to create one or more of several different possible states in the conscious or unconscious area of the brain. Again, I'll just read that again. The purpose of mind-altering techniques is to create one or more of several different possible states in the conscious or unconscious area of the brain. The ultimate goal of controlled offensive behavior might well be the total submission of one's will to some outside force. Demonic, almost like demonic possession, right? Okay. It is more realistic to assume that lesser degrees of mental aberration would be the purpose of Soviet research in this field. Very important. Lesser degrees of mental aberration. So,
right.
You want to talk about lesser degrees of mental aberration in America right now? An
Yeah,
example?
they're everywhere, right? Like this craziness. So it's Yuri Benzimov or whatever on steroids.
Yeah. Okay. And then some areas of human mind manipulation that apply to this report are morale lowering, confusion, anxiety, loss of confidence, loss of self reliance, fatigue, persuasion, disruption of social cohesion, or complete incapacitation. So I think this is visible directly to us, right? It's directly apparent in examples from media, from people we know, right? Of any one of these states. Um, since the desired end product of this type of research is some change in the human mind, only the non-lethal aspects are discussed. However, it should be noted that some techniques have lethal thresholds. Um, and I'll just continue 3, and then we can
Okay, go for it.
go into it. So, number 3, the purpose of the study is to portray the Soviet research in mind manipulation and its possible use on U.S. or allied individuals or troops. Control defensive behavior, however, has other connotations. Certain methods of altering mental or physical states of man may have application on one's own mental or physical state. Sorry, on one's own individual. I think it's a typo in the report. The apport, you know about the apport technique?
No, what's that?
The apport technique and astral projection are examples discussed. Apport technique. This is a type of, well, we'll go into it. Okay, the apport, APPORT, apport technique. These two methods allow the enemy to impart certain behavioral characteristics on its own people, to the detriment of U.S. allied personnel or its missions. So I'll I'll leave it there.
Wow, what's the apport technique? Tell me what that is.
Well, we'll get to that in just a
Okay.
minute. Like I said, we'll
Okay.
get to that. Actual thing. So the apport technique goes back to the 19th century. Very interesting, right?
Mhm.
So we go forward. So we go Northern Ireland. So in this, so if you look at this, I guess a lot of people are just listening, so we can't expect them to read the text. But if you want to see that, one of the things is that you look at Guantanamo Bay. So one of the things done in Northern Ireland was the Guantanamo Bay thing of you have stress position with the blindfold, sensory deprivation, classic photo from Iraq, right? Or Guantanamo Bay, right? It's exactly used in Northern Ireland. And if I'll just read it. So, this is quote. Okay, recently there appeared in the press some discussions elaborating on the technique and procedure for detaining, treating, and interrogating prisoners in Northern Ireland. According to the report, once the detainees are in prison, they come under 3 types of regime, which creates in man a state of great confusion, suggestibility, and distress. Look at the triad: confusion, suggestibility, and distress. Right?
Right.
Confusion.
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening.
Right.
Look at the media. Trump assassination.
Intentional. Yeah.
Confusion. Suggestibility. Because you're open, you're confused, you become suggestible. And distress. Right?
Right.
Uh, okay. The first regime contained various methods to produce sensory isolation, virtual reality, right? VR glasses, headphones, masking. This is all sensory isolation techniques. The men were made to stand against a wall with their hands in the air for 4 to 6 hours at a time. The total length was 43 and a half hours. Hoods were placed over the men's heads to further abolish visual input. sensory input was further decreased by having loud noise generators turned on in order to mask meaningful sounds. The attendees were therefore isolated from their sensory world, which is also like Astroworld in a certain way, right? Create a type of
There's a really good documentary about this Northern Ireland techniques, these mind control, sensory deprivation techniques. Those guys were talk about traumatization over a long period of time. Some of them never recovered, actually. They were so traumatized.
Yeah.
And they weren't really, according to some analysts or some people, they weren't really IRA members. They were just suspected to be IRA members. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff, I mean, you talk about the whole TI phenomenon, et cetera, is that, you're looking for certain types of breaking control mechanisms, right? And I would say,
that's what they're trying to do, is trying to
going off the reservation to sever your connection from yourself, from the universe, from God, right? This is fundamentally what it is. And to, turn the human potential against itself. But so this last thing from the IRA thing, number 5, psychological torture and physical abuse have been used on Catholic detainees in Northern Ireland. High frequency sound waves, range not given in report, and sensory deprivation. Research methods that have been outlawed for years for use on humans by the American Psychological Association. Okay, maybe not you and Cameron, right? But anyways, were being used to undermine the dignity and destroy the effectiveness of the Catholic minority of Northern Ireland. The case of one 40-year-old released prisoner has been reported. Upon release, the man's mental and physical condition suggested senility, a condition inconsistent with his health at the time of his internment. The man walks like he's 65, whimpers in the dark, and has an attention span so short he cannot carry on a conversation. Destroyed.
Wow.
It's a high frequency sound deprivation. So I'll just bring up one book here that Zimmer's. I don't need to read the actual physical. I can look at the screen. Okay. High tech. I'm reading the paper and it's on the screen. Okay. Anyway,
whatever works.
Okay. Look at this. This book.
I might even have it.
Biederman and Zimmer's 1961 publication, The Manipulation of Human Behavior. You familiar with that book at all?
No, I don't remember it offhand. No.
Okay, but that's so that anyways.
I'm familiar with a lot of the mind control books, though. I have a decent stack of those books.
Okay. Anyways, so I won't go through. I'll jump to the other sections here, but anything you want to chime in?
No, please continue.
Okay, so I'm going to go to, if you want to bring up the document, page 7.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go to 7, 6, 7.
So one of the things I want to stress is one of the big parts of the Soviet regime was mental illness, right? Administrative detention based on mental illness. So we see that, veterans questioning 9/11 getting detained, right? This mental illness detention stuff was really extremely prominent in Soviet Union. The actress Frances Farmer, that whole thing. So she was thrown in. Yeah. She was thrown into the whole psychiatric rigmarole.
They did it to a lot of people. I think Judith Exner really got the runaround from the FBI. Like they gave her intimidation techniques. And there was another actress who I forgot, but she was very sympathetic to the civil rights movement. And they literally drove her crazy and she killed herself. Like the FBI did. They do these techniques. It's real. It's like out of the Soviet Union. I forgot what that name of that actress's name was, but she was big in the 60s. Do you remember?
Marilyn Monroe. No. What I'm saying though, this like Frances Farmer was, in the 30s, but very, egregious, right? But there's many examples of this, people saying they're insane. What was it? Kanye, right?
Right. It turned out that it was true, that they were trying to drive him crazy, right? That he literally had this guy handler.
But this involuntary detention, right? You can go back
Right.
to United Nations documents on mental hygiene, but involuntary detention, administration of drugs, administration of ADD drugs, administration of, whatever. But this is just, I'll just read this quote here from the document, number 12, page 6. Okay, the possible use of drugs by Soviet psychiatrists in order to manipulate behavior can be emphasized by an account from Vladimir Gershuni, a Soviet idealist. The event that follows occurred at the Oriol Hospital, which is some 170 miles southwest of Moscow. Mr. Gunchi gives a description of this condition in which mental patients, both genuine and political, are held. 8 people to a 16 or 17-meter cell.
Right.
There's no room to move. One is allowed to go along the corridor, but only if it's absolutely necessary.
Wow.
To the toilet or get some food from the nurse. The toilet is a cesspit, 4 holes in the ground, and 2 taps for 54 people. From 7:30 to 8:30 in the evening, we're allowed to use the dining room for writing letters or play dominoes and chess. The bedlam is indescribable. Mr. Gershuni talks about the use of drugs, one of which is aminazine, a powerful substance administered orally or by intramuscular injections, which cause depressive shock reactions and frequently malignant tumors. Sometimes drugs are given as a form of punishment. Quote, any phrase spoken cautiously to a doctor or nurse can serve as a pretext for a series of aminizing injections. Sometimes these injections are prescribed without any pretext, simply because of some doctor's whim, without any medical examination. This medicine makes me feel more horrible than anything I've ever experienced before. You no sooner lie down than you want to get up. You no sooner take a step than you're longing to sit down. And if you sit down, you want to walk again. There's nowhere to walk. Look at that constant agitation, right? That this is anyways. Um, finishes account. Describing fed of a young man, once brilliantly alert and alive, reduced to the state of a vegetable. His head on one side, his speech language and indistinct. Sorry, languid and indistinct. His eyes glazed. He was thus canceled out for the 5 whole months. Hail to Soviet special psychiatry. I kiss you all. Okay. But anyways, we not see this, right? We see this in Prozac. We see this in the whole pharmacological industry.
We see it in Aldous Huxley, The Ultimate Revolution, right? Just drug people and they'll be comfortable. The person I was trying to remember was Jane Seberg.
Oh, yeah.
But like her story, she was progressive, she was sympathetic. She so intensely stressed that her pregnancy, she suffered a mental breakdown and gave birth to her child prematurely. It was later purported and later confirmed by declassified FBI files that she was stalked, wiretapped, and generally surveilled while she spent time abroad in Switzerland and France. Records also show that Hoover kept President Richard Nixon well informed about the ongoing effort to neutralize Jane Seberg, like an actress from the Midwest. They thought that she was involved in progressive causes deemed dangerous. And then she just didn't make it. It's a shame.
Well, so yeah, and there is it's very important, we can abstract this, but the whole psychic care, conditionality of what it generates in people, right? When people go into the system and they don't get out, or they're targeted. But this is the wrong think, right? So we're literally living in a much more advanced, version of this system right now. Okay, well, let me go to my next uh, page. Um, I've listed. Um,
What page are we on now?
okay, just go to page 9. So this is about. So basically, what we have, there's a 1961 directive that allowed the detention of people, basically for wrong think, right, into using weaponizing the mental health system. And we can see this in the United States, right, where people can be locked up, right? I mean, there's, I believe also in Europe, I mean, you can say this person is mentally ill, they'll just come and take them away. You're suddenly out. There's no rule of law. You have no sovereignty. There's no, man on the land. You have no standing. You are in this system, which is different from the criminal legal system, right? And it has a lot of protocols where you cannot exit. So, but so the Serbsky Institute, they're basically saying this is BS. So just as the counter thing, the mission stated, it is possible that people who need treatment should be compulsorily hospitalized for their own good. You want to read number 4?
Yeah, let's go to it. Let's see.
It's right there next on the page.
Number 4, Znezhvinsky, in another document, 33, said that when mentioning brainwashing, many absurd allegations have been made, such as the talk of injecting a substance which paralyzes a person's will. Znezhvinsky contends that brainwashing from a scientific point of view is absurd. He further believes that the people dedicated to this sort of propaganda have very few scruples and direct the propaganda to laymen who know nothing about medicine. Interviews with Zhnaevsky and Lebedin, chief of psychiatry at the Pavlov Hospital in Leningrad, were obtained just prior to the Fifth World Psychiatric Congress in Mexico City, which was held in early December 1971.
Yeah. So we could go on with this, but it's a denial that it doesn't exist. It's absurd. And which is, goes back to the basic doctrine.
It would be interesting to see who attended that World Congress. Like, it's probably just all kinds of troublemakers there. You and Cameron, probably Jolly West, all those guys are probably there.
Well,
can you imagine what those conferences are like and what those guys talked about over drinks?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that, Meade, Bateson, we started out, one of the things, they were complete communists. They were totally on board with this. They were agents. I mean, this was, one of the things was under the, Soviet, of course, was an ally, and, fighting Nazism, but many people infiltrated during that period, right? So you see these sort of interplay, counterplay of world forces, and just going back to techniques which were Soviet influenced being used in Northern Ireland that we see in the classic Guantanamo Bay photos, right? Stress position, 43 and a half hours. So let's go. So I find this very interesting. Let's go to page 10.
Okay. Let's see, where are we? This is 11, 10. Yes.
Okay. So, let's see. So, I'll just read this. Psychology is a growth stage which appears to have sprung up coincident to its man in space program. Contrary to the reference above, this source believes that despite the growth and acceptance by the Soviet scientific community, the Soviets are merely duplicating or extending to some degree the research that is already known. But here's the fact, which I'm stressing, is that they're in certain areas far advanced of the United States. They were doing stuff in the 1920s that was done with the MK Ultra LSD stuff in the 1960s. So, but anyways,
those early documents of Esterbrook's and Hoover are incredible. They're from the 30s. They're way ahead. They knew about splitting the brain. They knew about compartmentalization, hypnosis farming. It's incredible. They really did. And I mean, there's a 500-page document that I went over. I didn't even go through the whole thing, but it just shows how involved they were in applying this stuff to whatever they were doing. They were really, it wasn't some kind of, shallow kind of investigation. Like, they were definitely involved and definitely traveling to upstate New York and down to New York City to have discussions about this stuff. The full leadership of the FBI. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So, so I'll just finish. In the opinion of the source, there's definitely a tie-in between the Soviet engineers, psychiatrists, and psychologists. It must be remembered that the Soviets are presently in a growth stage, and therefore, at the time, merely making their investments. So it's a growth stage. So these are investments. Um, I'll skip. Okay, neuro. Um, okay, but number two, according to one report, there is apparently classified psychological research going on in the area of cybernetics.
Right.
One area that surveillance would appear fruitful is Soviet research in the area of artificial intelligence. This report contains a substantial number of institutes and personalities, which is reflected in Appendix 1. So, Appendix 1 has a huge list of all these institutions involved. Okay, number three, it is concluded, in spite of their ideological resistance to theoretical psychology, Soviet behavior scientists share a distinguished experimental technique and possess the ability to incorporate and combine the principles of biocybernetics. So, you ever even heard that word? Biocybernetics is foundation science for a lot of what we see around us right now. But the word itself is gone, right? Biocybernetics.
Interesting.
Who talks about biocybernetics? Biocybernetics. That is, bios. Okay. Anyways,
Just the Soviets, right? Or
no. Biocybernetics is this is a massive area of research. I mean, contemporary. I mean, this is everything. This is the whole, injectable AI. This is if the vaccine in the science fiction novel, is the vaccine is a, basically alters the, genetic code or creates certain receptor sites for particular frequencies. That's biocybernetics. But it's conditioning on a biological level. So it's very important. Physiology, learning, memory, and transfer under a common group of laws. So that what that means is transfer under a common group of laws is that you learn to integrate all these disparate fields, all these different techniques and technologies, and derive specific laws that are transmittable, cross domain transmission, particular law of a certain type of behavioral thing that can be put into photic driving, that can be put into acoustic aural electromagnetic frequency manipulation, that can be put into media propaganda, right? And so all, you know what I mean? So there's a transferable, it's creating sort of um it's going to core or root functional cross platform paradigms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, but they're thinking on that scale. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. So I just keep
Yeah, keep reading, please.
I'll keep going. Yeah. So this is just my highlights, and I'll try to not ramble too much. There's just so much in this document. It goes. I mean, but you just go ahead and look at page 12 and 13. Just look at some of these tables. It also talk about infiltration of health education. Go up to page 12.
All right, let's do it. Page 12. Let's see, 12. There you go. That's 12. Is that what you want?
Yeah. So, hours of theoretical training, but so all these examples: pathopsychology, clinical psychiatry, schizophrenia, manic depressive psychosis, infectional psychosis. So these are, the hours of treatment, senile psychosis, but okay, go to the next page. So the population, so you see the increase of the number of these neurologists and psychiatrists. So mental health care is being was weaponized against the indigenous Soviet population.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
very important, and we can see the growth. Um, so I'll just I'll read number 7. Go ahead and read 7.
7. Figures in Table 2, if valid, represent a substantial growth in the number of specialists in mental health care. The number and quality of both psychology and psychiatry research reports is increasing, especially in the behavioral fields. There appears to be an ever increasing link between the psychology and psychiatry fields with the pharmacology, human engineering, bioelectronics, physics, and parapsychology disciplines. Some of the multidiscipline aspects of Soviet research will become evident later in this study as it relates to the subject of this report. The above information on psychology and psychiatry was intended to be a review because it is believed that there is a definite relationship between the two disciplines and mental manipulation. It is not within the scope of this report to delve into basic psychological research and discuss its military implications.
But pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Bioelectronics, right?
Right.
Bio in the 70s,
72.
bioelectronics, right?
Wow.
So, um, anyways, it's quite interesting. So we see the same thing. So we just go to. I'm kind of just skimming through this. Let's go to
That's fine.
page 16.
16. Let's do 16, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Okay. So this is about all these different aspects, right, that affect us. Maybe subtly, but they can have major effects. This is talking about temperature, um, body water. Body temperature decreases, the body water level creates a salt water imbalance. The little replacement of sodium chloride, painful spasms of the skeletal and abdominal muscles develop and may also increase faintness, weakness, nausea, and vomiting. But how many of these diseases or pandemics can be simply created by manipulating some of these factors? Okay, right? Temperature manipulation for human behavior is practical. Okay, physiological, geophysical parameters. They talk about an increase of 0.2 carbon dioxide doubles the volume of air breathed. Think about wearing a mask.
Right.
Okay,
That's the
breathing.
secondary purpose, huh? Oxygenate you.
Well, I mean, we can see like sensory deprivation, right? All these things. Okay, breathing becomes deeper, more rapid, and eventually violent. Depletion of oxygen or the increase of carbon dioxide decreases auditory sensitivity as well as visual sensitivity. Wearing a mask decreases auditory as well as visual sensitivity.
Did you hit that or did I? You want to be on 18, right?
I'm actually on 16.
Okay. So let's go back.
So I'm just bringing stuff up, for people's reference. I won't go in all this in detail, but some of these things this is just from increase of carbon dioxide. You can do that in a building very easily.
For sure.
If you want to just read from the top of page 17.
17. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. With severe or prolonged anoxia, there may be nausea, vomiting, extreme weakness, and eventually convulsions and cardiac failure. Perhaps the applicable symptoms of anoxia to this report are the homeostatic imbalances in the brain, loss of ability to carry on complex activities, restlessness, loquacity, delirium, confusion, and unconsciousness. Wow.
Hey, keep going. Number 3.
3. Intermittent exposures to negatively ionized air produces a sedating effect on humans. There are some researchers who believe that positively ionized air causes irritation and anxiety, which is applicable to altering behavior.
So how about ionizing air?
Yeah.
Right? Air ionization. So these are, subtle things, but these are ways to, I mean, you can induce a pandemic just by using some of these simple methodologies and procedures with the psychological aspects and a little bit of frequency ping and some other stuff. Boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, so it goes, okay, we're talking about olfactory phenomena. We'll go into that. There's pheromone release. So pheromones, if you think about pheromones, right? Um, um, pheromones, sound, auditory effects. So there's a huge sound is extremely powerful. Um, in this whole thing, you go to page 16. Um, you can just read that from one.
Olfactory. Oh, you want to do sound from 16? Let's go back.
Sorry, 18.
Okay,
I'm
18. Sorry,
18.
it's okay. Part E, sound. Sound from one source or another has been used to elicit behavioral changes in man in every war ever recorded. It may be a simple bugle call or battle cry or a mechanical siren device. But whatever is used, there is normally a psychological response by the receiver. Regardless of the absolute level, the sounds of enemy weapons with which one is unfamiliar is frightening, provided the sounds are associated with a feared weapon or the unknown.
You keep going. Yeah.
2. Auditory effects have been and still are researched. Nerve deafness can certainly result from prolonged exposure to loud sounds. For the purpose of this study, it is believed that the non-auditory effects are just as important when discussing behavioral alterations. For example, exposure to a siren-generated sound of 20 kilohertz at 1 watt per square centimeter kills a variety of insect life in 3 to 4 minutes and larger animals, mice, in about 1 minute. Human operators with earplugs experience cool, sizzling sensations in the mouth and an unpleasant tingling in the nasal passages when near the siren. Wow.
Keep going.
Sound can be used on controlled groups or in the field. Sound can produce behavioral changes, and the effects of sound on humans is being investigated in the Soviet Union. For these reasons, a more detailed discussion can be found later in this report.
Okay, great. And I'll just go part F, electromagnetic energy, right? So we're bathed in electromagnetic frequencies. So super high frequency electromagnetic oscillations, SHF. And it's always interesting again to go back to fields, um, when I did like psychobiology, bioelectronics. These are the root. Many of these things go away from sort of public purview, but you can find the real research with some of these earlier, designations. But anyways, okay, super high frequency electromagnetic oscillations, SHF, may have potential use as a technique for altering human behavior. Soviet Union and other foreign literature sources contain over 500 studies devoted to the biological effect of SHF. Lethal and non-lethal aspects have been shown to exist. In certain non-lethal exposure, definite behavioral changes have occurred. There also occurs to be a change in mammals when exposed to SHF. Its sensitivity to sound, light, and olfactory stimuli. That is 6G, 5G. This is SHF. These are weaponized frequencies. So you don't need to use these frequencies for cell phone transmission, right? You don't need, but these are SHF. These are super high frequencies, right? And you also have the infrasonic. The reason that, like the 5G requires all these towers is because it's a high frequency. Like elephants can communicate over hundreds of miles using infrasound, right? So base frequencies travel, much greater distances, but the really high frequencies require, relay stage, phase array transmission devices, right? That's why, but extremely harmful. And this is, um, so anyways,
It's incredible that they're thinking about all this stuff in the 70s. Like, it's all coming into view. Like, I've actually know one person who I interviewed who had to move to a rural area just because of the new frequencies. Like, she really thought that it was affecting her well-being and health. And it's interesting too, because I was in this I know the cell industry pretty well, and there's all kinds of warnings and all kinds of indemnities for the cell towers. And if you're up on one of those cell towers for too long, they have to turn them off if you have to fix them. Like it'll turn a man infertile, literally will. I've been close to them, and it'll make the hair on your arm stand straight up like that. They're very powerful. Yeah.
But these are actually military grade frequencies. So there's before the 5G, whatever, I don't think it's been fully implemented because we don't, but to a certain extent it's implemented. But there's other frequency spectra, right, that can carry more information that are non, you know, bioreactive. They don't harm the human organism. They're not toxic frequencies, and it's like a radio transmitter. And you just have a radio tower. You can cover an entire city. You don't need, and it's non-lethal. It's non-toxic. But these are weaponized frequencies. So that UHF, and we are living in a time where a lot of things are being deleted, right? A lot of information is being pulled off, a lot of terminology like bioelectronics as and cybernetics, biocybernetics, etc. Go through biofield energetics. These terms are almost unknown now, right?
Right.
You go back to Kurt Lewin, right? These, psychological fields, collective psychological energetic fields. A lot of this, in terms of people's access to it, has been lifted into a, to use a metaphor, sort of a frequency of like new age or this or that. But, when you do the concluding episode, we'll see they're actually, I don't know what the status of this. There was this movement from these very high level military people who knew all this research, who returned to a spiritual conception of man and nature and the world, but having all this stuff, but within a totally scientific domain, and even using scientific cybernetic stuff, but in a positive way.
Right. So this is kind of like the negative thing. There are positive uses of smell, sound, pleasant background music at a restaurant, right? Good smells at a restaurant as well, or at a spa or sauna. So there's a positive side to all of these things, I would say. Like I would say this is a positive use of high technology. We're discussing this, right? You're in Ohio, I'm in California. So I mean, it's whether what the intent is for use. Is it harmful use or beneficial use, right?
Yeah. So go ahead and go to page 22 and you can read that. Now it starts to get interesting. So
okay. Table 3, Type 1, bioinformation. Those phenomena associated with the obtaining of information through means other than the normal sensory channels, e.g. through extrasensory perception, ESP. There are several forms of ESP, including A, telepathy, transmission or reading of thoughts refers to the extrasensory reception of information about the mental processes of others. B, proscopy or precognition. While the above forms appear to differ only in the nature of the object about which information is received, numerous observations indicate that precognitive ESP involves, under certain circumstances, trespassing the barrier of time to obtain information about future events. C. Paragnosia or clairvoyance refers to the extrasensory reception of information about objective events in the outer world.
Interesting, right? So, but they call it bioinformation. So this is not, so it's not classified as a, woo-woo type of thing, but
right.
it's there. You can go ahead. You can just continue. Just the rest of the page.
Type 2, bioenergetics. These phenomena associated with the production of objectively detectable effects through means other than the known energetic influences. Seemingly incredible effects have been reported, such as the movement of distant objects without any detectable use of physical force, telekinesis, anti-gravitational effects, transformations of energy, electromagnetic effects arising without adequate physical cause, and chemical reactions and biological processes occurring through mental concentration. Do you want me to go into all these guys' research?
Well, I don't know if you want to. So what we have here, though, again, so we're going now. We stepped from, which was just as the earlier thing about the Serbsky Institute, or whatever, that, which at the end of this document, you have the whole thing of the legalization of just detaining people for mental health issues within minutes, and suddenly they're gone, right? So, but then of course it's denied as it exists. And the same thing, we look at this bioinformation. So this has been researched and studied. So it's not, I mean, again, going through, what we have, like Kreskin, the amazing Kreskin, or, ESP. Well, the thing is that, we have this, I haven't gotten into that much. It's basically called the reticular formation. It's a very important part of the, the quote unquote amygdala spine, which filters our consciousness. It filters what we perceive to be possible and not possible. It's a consciousness filtration mechanism that's it's very fluid, right? But it can also be extremely rigid. So certain things, you know, we think, oh, telepathy. Well, sometimes, you feel like you read someone's thought. Your friend calls you, and or whatever. But it's not. When in terms of bioinformation, we're talking about, they're looking at scientifically, what is the medium for this? How can this be researched based on the human, uh, you know, Biofield. You read the type 2. You read the type 2, right?
Let me see. I read down all the way to type 2. Yeah, I read that.
Okay. So, yes. So, we go into this now. There's so much in here. It talks about, I mean, sight, wavelengths. Really, it's super fascinating. I don't know. I have a bunch of stuff marked. Let's,
Mysterious phenomena of the human psyche. So these guys are really into it. There's a very intense strain of kind of occultism in Russian culture. I think I talked to you about it, but
Yeah.
just like here, just in the States as well.
Well, no, I mean, what we see is that the quote unquote scientific, once you include the human biofield and bioenergetics, what we call occult phenomena fits right in.
Right.
These, non-physical energetic formations, et cetera, egregores. That's a big thing, we'll get into the egregores, which, et cetera. But let's see. So this is, just go to page 25. So number 5, in 1963, Dr. Valezev claimed to have conducted successful long-distance telepathic experiments between Leningrad and Sevastopol, a distance of 1,200 miles, with the aid of an ultra-shortwave UHF radio transmitter. So they're using radio technology for telepathic communication. So people talk about, demonic influence from television or radio. This is being researched, studied, right? Even though, according, at the fall of the Berlin Wall, all turned out to be BS, right? Because of the, the whatever, the Johnny Carson version of it. But as a result, Dr. Valesev was convinced that his experiments and those he conducted jointly with the Moscow-based Baratekerev Brain Institute, which is very interesting. Like I said, I've got so much on this stuff. We could just keep going and going. I like this document because it gives a nice sort of overview. But anyways, so this is Baratekerev Brain Institute offered scientific proof of telepathic communication. His next goal was to identify the nature of the brain energy that produces it. Theorizing on the above experiments, one Soviet scientist suggested that telepathic impulses are radiated along the lines of bits of information in a cybernetic system. It's very important. Okay. Another scientist is known to be working on the idea of time as energy, speculating that telepathic transmissions may be propagated through a supposed time energy system rather than through the electromagnetic field. So this is a very important paragraph. I don't know if you want to say anything on it.
It's just incredibly advanced the way they're thinking about all this stuff. It's almost like a science fiction document in a way, but they're really forward thinking. Like, it's surprising that none of the stuff really made it out. Like, I haven't come across this document anywhere else.
Well, look at this though. Suggested the telepathic impulses. Okay, so telepathic impulses, meaning impulse, like an energy wave, right? So we're talking about wave. We have different systems. I'm not a mathematician or whatever, but we're looking at impulse, right? We have an impulse. You have a sound. So if I clap my hands, I'm creating an impulse of energy, which it affects the airwaves, right? And those airwaves, that's an impulse of energy, and then you hear the sound of a clap, right? Okay,
Right.
There we go. But are radiated. So we're talking about radiation, not we're talking radiation, not just unidirectional. So this goes into mass. You talk about mass psychosis or mass energetics. Going back to what we hit the last time about the philosophical thing, right? Is that this elite group with the dialectic, not as it becomes atemporal. It's not in time. It's acausal. It's
Right.
and so because you've taken out, there's no divine. There's no morality. There's no higher values. There's just simply what you want, how to get there, right? But one thing that's stressed in that, which a lot of people, is it's the man of the people. We care about the people. No, they are using the mass formation as an energy bank. Okay, you're utilizing this energy. You're creating an array, a constellation. All right, you're using the human bioenergy, emotional energy as a feeder mechanism into the impulse. But anyways, bits of information in a cybernetic system. What is that? That's 6G. That is virtual reality. That is the World Economic Forum. That is, that is exactly what we're living in right now. Cybernetic information. What is the telepathy? It's you're just wired in. Your brain is wired into the hive computer, the hive mind.
Right.
But the quote unquote occult and the technological, it's just a different form of sorcery.
Right. It's fused. It's almost just like different terminology, maybe for the same thing. Definitely overlapping in meaning. I think that's for sure.
Yeah. And then, which I think, but some of the stuff is super interesting, right? Is that
super interesting.
telepathic transmissions may be propagated through a supposed time energy system. So using time. So this, rather than the electromagnetic field, but a lot of stuff relates to electromagnetism, time, and just we can see a lot of links to this in Hollywood, in films. I mentioned Philip K. Dick. He talked about a lot of this stuff that was sort of he received these transmissions, which he says is exegesis. The whatever huge volume, where it actually I think he's a great writer. Very intelligent, but I realize that this stuff he's writing. The Valis, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Valis. It's a satellite. It's a mind control satellite that's beaming frequencies, into the planet Earth creating, all this stuff. I mean, he actually was living that and thought it was real. It wasn't just fiction for him.
Right. Wasn't VALIS an acronym for something? It was something like
Vast active living intelligence system.
Yeah, that's right.
But he equates Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, Christ, but then it all goes back to this AI. And that's a different topic, but he was very
kind of overlaps. It kind of does overlap. I mean, he's really probably one of the greatest. His reputation has increased over time. One of the greatest science fiction writers of all time, if not the greatest.
Well, he was receiving telepathic communication. There's various accounts. He was receiving this telepathic communication from Soviet Union, and we would receive these weird envelopes in the mail and this and that. So this stuff, I mean, even in the same era. So there's a total connection. I mean, and then you look at like VALIS, with like the rock band, this movie. People don't know the book. That's, I won't go into the whole plot.
It's another show. Philip K.
Dick. But this is like Philip K. Dick. It reads like a science fiction document.
It really does. It really does. It's incredible to listen to these guys. Listen to number 6. Soviet research into biocommunications phenomena does not appear to be earthbound and limited to inner space, but apparently it extends to outer space as well. The so-called father of Soviet rocketry, K.E. Tsiolkovsky, stated that, quote, in the coming era of space flights, telepathic abilities are necessary. While the space rocket must bring men towards knowledge of the grand secrets of the universe, the study of psychic phenomena can lead us towards knowledge of the mysteries of the human mind. It is precisely the solution of this secret which promises the greatest achievements, unquote. There are reports that the Soviets are training their cosmonauts in telepathy to back up their electronic equipment while in outer space.
Wow. Go to the next page.
One of these backup schemes is known to involve coded telepathic messages. This method was previously demonstrated in March 1967 when a coded telepathic message was flashed from Moscow to Leningrad. The involvement of astronauts or cosmonauts in telepathy experiments is not necessarily unprecedented. Wow. In February 1971, during the Apollo 14 flight to the moon, astronaut Edgar Mitchell made 150 separate attempts to project his thoughts from inside the space capsule back to an individual on Earth. The results of the Apollo 14 experiments have been well documented in detail and are published in the Journal of Parapsychology. Further documentation of Mitchell's experiments can be found in the University of California newsletter. Right, so Mitchell starts the Noetics Society, right?
Yeah.
Mentioned Dan Brown that had all those experiments. And I interviewed, when I first was started, the head of the Noetics Society when he put out his book. I can't remember his name now. I gotta find it. But yeah, it was interesting. So I didn't know that they're writing about that stuff. It's incredible. It's really something else.
Yeah. And like I said, this is just a
let me see if I can find this guy's name. What was the name of that book? It's like Mind something. Hey. It's interesting how it all gets kind of tied together or overlaps. Wow, good Lord. I can't believe I'm not remembering this guy's name. Let me see if I can find the Noetics Society. Go ahead. If you want to read more, please do.
Yeah. So, like number 7, but a great, Jacob's Ladder, that movie Jacob's Ladder. That's a great. You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah, very much so. Very strange.
Yeah, so that's real. I mean, this was experimentation, that was done. And you have, men who stare at goats.
Right.
In Men Who Stare at Goats, though, you have again this watered down version, sort of the clown version, right? You have the Monroe Institute, which I've been there multiple times. Monroe Institute used for the remote viewing, etc. But we get this, unclear. We don't get this application field with understanding what are the mechanisms, right? So it's not just woo woo. These are whatever. Okay. So like number 7, There are numerous reports on Soviet applications of clairvoyance, hypnotism, dowsing, etc., in military operations. In the case of dowsing, this is also not unprecedented since U.S. forces have employed dowsing in Vietnam for locating enemy tunnels and caches. So dowsing. So we see that, if anybody doesn't know what dowsing is, you hold the stick and you it will, indicate wells or water. I think everyone's familiar with that. But they're using that military application respect to the brain and mind control conditioning. A recent report indicates that the Soviet Union has made great strides in emotional training and conditionings. So soldiers are being taught to set their own emotional tone in battle and stress situations. Astronauts are being taught their mental conditioning to distort time and offset boredom. So we have so many. The thing is that in one way, you see all these elites. Kissinger is like what 1,000 years old. Just he'll never
Yeah,
die.
he passed away. Yeah,
I know, but to me, he's still alive. He'll never die.
yeah. There, his ghost will haunt us.
Then he had this. The photo wasn't a magazine like Look magazine. He was naked. Have you seen that? He's covering his Johnson. There was like in the '60s. There was a.
I'm not surprised.
He had a cover spread. Of course, he's but he was like nude, with like this subtle hand covering the very probably very small package. But that, Kissinger, of course, they're all part of this. But so there's what I want to stress though is that there's so many of these things. What we get is distorted versions of these technologies. We get distorted versions of self-help stuff. We get this technique, that technique, this, but it doesn't, because it's deliberately leaving out the actual reality, right? Let me go through all
the name I was trying to remember was Dean Radin. He was the former head. He became head of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. That was who it was. It goes back interesting. The name noetic comes from the parapsychologist in the 19th century. What was his name? It was William James. Have you ever read William James and the Variety of Religious Experience?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a new age. It's kind of like this kind of information. It's basically like he was actually one of the first psychologists to influence Freud. But like he would take into account, parapsychology, things like that, which was kind of, I guess, forward thinking for the time.
Well, his brother was Henry James, of course, the great novelist, right? So William James and Henry James, and William James, was the one of the founders of well, he was like sort of you could say almost the founder of psychology,
right?
As a discipline.
Well. Yeah, as a discipline, right? You could almost say like Dostoevsky was really one of the early psychologists, even though it was fiction, but he ruminated on interior states in the 19th century in great detail. So those two guys both very influential.
Well, actually psychology as a discipline, there's a lot of quote unquote psychology in literature, in religious discourse, in philosophy, in folk sayings, or traditional culture.
Aesop's fables, total psychology, arrogance, self, vanity, all that stuff, all those kind of psychological states.
Yeah. So I don't want to, man, there's so much.
There's so much here. Like, we're at 90 minutes. We're at 90 minutes. I don't know. Have we gone through how many pages are in this document? I don't know.
We've barely touched it, but I want to just get to this quite interesting. You go to page 27 and we can kind of finish with this. Go to the, and we'll hit the outport technique there.
Okay.
Also. So
27. There we go. The apport technique. I don't even know what that is. Do you want to read it? Go ahead.
Well, we'll start from this bioplasma, right? 1972. You want to read number 9 before you hit the
Sure. According to observations made by Dr. Montague Ullman during a trip to the Soviet bloc countries in the fall of 1970, Soviet biocommunications investigations are effectively combining the use of modern and sophisticated technology with basic pragmatic approaches. This was evident, he states, in their approach to long distance telepathy experiments, where the results were analyzed in physiological, electroencephalographic data, as well as psychological task performance transmission of data in Morse code. Dr. Ullman further observed that the Soviet researchers seemed intent on confirming the existence of a new form of energy, referred to as bioplasma, which they maintain is characteristic of life processes and represents matter in the form of an integrated system of elementary charged particles. Such energy, through interaction with other systems, is thought to provide the basis for biocommunications. Wow, new energy.
This is wild, right? Bioplasma. Okay. So really interesting things that, um, things are encoded in certain ways. I mean, I think that, you go into more of a spiritual approach, and then you can understand quote unquote bioplasma, feel the spirit. It's bioplasma, right? But this is presented in a scientific document. But bioplasma is really fascinating. Um, we obviously don't have time to go into this.
That'll be the next show. It looks like we're probably going to do a part 8 and 9.
I don't know, man. I was
That's
trying to
right.
get to. I always do, like, originally. I do this, like, I wrote on my legal pad the outline for that show, and it kept going. But we're it's there's lots of stuff there. It's not we're not going around the block. Like, what is that? That children's book, I Am the Cheese. If you remember that.
I don't recall that. Doesn't sound familiar to me.
It's very interesting. I guess I just turned on the comments. It said Indians are wealthier than Persians. I should have brought that up. I'm very connected with I play sitar professionally, and I work with various I whatever I do academic work in India, etc. So I have a sense. I maybe shouldn't say that on air, but whatever, I said it. But the
No,
thing
it's
is,
true. I literally read that within the last month. I read some graph where it had the ethnicities and their net worth and income. And white people were kind of in the middle, but like people from India, of all different ethnicities in India, which is a real tapestry. India, Persians, something else was up there, but like it's a thing. It's real. It's a real.
yeah.
I mean, the thing is the ones that are coming to in the United States typically are the higher caste. They have access to better education and travel, so you're going to get the ones who can make more money, which is why they come to the United States. It makes perfect sense, and they're going into those professions like tech or doctors or things like that, where they can make that much money. They probably can't even come close to making that kind of money in India.
No, no. But there is very, very strong. Like I said, they have depending on the ethnic group, very strong networks. Like, you just dial into that network, you're set. Even you don't even have any skills. They had people being hired all over the country, for high, $100,000 a year jobs with no skills whatsoever. But they were still, and whatever.
It's
Okay,
a sticking together type thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think we should just wrap it up and do another show next week or something like that. We're at 90 minutes.
okay,
My
well,
voice
let's
is getting raspy.
Okay, yeah, because the apport technique gets really far out. We'll just
Yeah,
I'll,
let's placehold that. Let's placehold a port technique, and that'll be our episode 8, and we'll try to do it next week, and then go from there. I'll send you this doc. I mean, where can people find your stuff? You have a new website. I know you have it updated. It's hansucher.com, or is it drhansucher.com?
it's hansutter.com.
Hansucher.
I'm have a meeting with the web guys, so hopefully they'll take me off lockdown, and we'll get that figured out. We're not.
And you guys can, people who are listening to, got 174 listeners on Twitter. Guys, you can go to Hans Uter's website, or you can go to his podcast and listen to the earlier shows. So it's Hans Uter Investigates Eyes Wide Open, right? Isn't that the name of
it? That's correct. Yep.
So people can check that out. And our other shows, the shows that we did about the dead, are there as well. And highly recommend those. These are some of my most popular shows too. People listen to these. This one, Advanced Soviet Research on Cybernetics, really interesting.
Yeah, let me just. I'm going to close with some of the stuff.
Okay.
So, and then, this is not like this information and all this stuff, this is not just something that is, you know, plug and play the latest, you know, conspiracy. This, we can witness this, but on the other side, to understand these things, you also gain, you know, regain autonomy, you know, just
Right. Good point. Good point.
but I'll just read this number 10 real quick.
Cognitive liberty, right? So not cognitive restructuring, but cognitive liberty. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but number 10. So, the above commentary documents a clear case for research in the Soviet Union and parapsychology. It is significant because of the energy and resources being allocated for this work in the Soviet Union and because of its military implications, especially for mind manipulation and controlled offensive behavior. The more sinister aspects of paranormal research appear to be surfacing in the Soviet Union. Why else would Soviet researchers make the following statement? Tell America that the psychic potential of man must be used for good. So we're talking about demonic portholes. We're talking about Astroworld as a, you know, so we're connecting now cybernetics, you know, behavior modulation, manipulation, quote unquote spiritual phenomena,
Right. In the battle between
demonology.
right, the battle between heaven and hell, right? Like it's that amazing. It's really incredible.
But what's cool about this is that, you know, it's not woo woo in terms of, but that last paragraph I think is very important because it's like you cross that, you open that threshold, you know, you open that portal.
Yeah.
And so, and then you know, we'll go on, but the outpour technique, that was, this is super,
Interesting.
super,
It's making me think of Order of Nine Angle stuff because they do this. They're into like opening space, like looking up at the sky and all the stars and drawing down stuff, kind of like a witch does, drawing down the moon or moonlight or something like that. But they're like, the Pisces or whatever, the different things in the stars have, they're supposed to presence these things. So it's really creepy. Like they
yeah,
believe in that.
yeah. But so the, you know, the outpour technique, we'll get into that next show. But this goes back Sir William Crookes, 1832 to 1919. Um,
I don't
Alfred
even know that
Russell
name.
Wallace, 1832 to 1913, which who worked with Charles Darwin. Okay,
Oh wow.
and then Johann F. Zollner, 1834 to 1882, professor of physical astronomy. So we'll get into this and see some of, you know, there's, you know, Tesla technology, quote unquote, but this, you know, anyways, it's you know,
It
very
gets there's still interesting pieces left in this document. For next time, we will do that. And again, it's Hans Uter. Look up his website, hansuter.com. And then Hans Uter Investigates. Eyes Wide Open is the podcast where you can listen to stuff. So I'll put links to both of those in the show notes. And thank you everybody for listening on X. I really get a lot more listeners on X. I don't get any problems like YouTube where somebody takes away my stuff or my channels. Literally, channels are disappeared. But anyway, it's nice to have all the listeners. So thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it. Hans Uter, thank you so much.
Thank you, William.
All right, stay there.